You know as soon as we're live. And we've started, Councillor Chad.
Brilliant. So, thank you, Adam. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the decision day of myself, the Executive Lead Member for Children's Services, and the Executive Lead Member for Education. These decision days are being broadcasted on our session live on YouTube via the County Council website. If I just take us straight to the agenda for today, the first item is deputations. We haven't received any deputations. And if I move us to key decisions, and agenda item 1 is the Department for Work and Pension Household Support Fund for October 2024 and March 2025. And I have got, if she is online yet, that Councillor Porter wishes to speak on this item, and I was going to get her to speak before we present, but she's not here, is she, at the moment? I'm looking at Adam for a quick nod.
No, she's not here.
Okay, thank you for that confirmation. So can I please hand over to Sarah Snowden, the Assistant Director for Children's Services, who's going to present this report.
Thank you, Councillor Chad. I'm actually going to hand over to Katie Eason, who's the lead in this area, and she's going to walk us through the report. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Katie Eason and I am the Head of Communities and Partnerships within Children's Services. So this is the 6th round of the Household Support Fund. Paragraph 12 outlines that we have just over 7.1 million allocated to Hampshire for the period 1st of October 24 to the 31st of March 25. Paragraph 13 highlights the expectation continues to be around supporting households in need of food and fuel support. While immediate needs will be prioritised, local authorities are able to use the fund to provide support that has longer-term sustainable impact. This grant comes with updated terms and conditions, therefore we're unable to carry forward any funds from previous rounds. The main difference within the guidance within this round and the previous one is the addition of preventative support. While this reference is new in this round, this is something we've always done in Hampshire. For example, providing equipment to our community pantry network and working with the Environment Centre to repair or replace boilers. There are no changes to the proposed approach since the member briefing, other than the report now outlines proposed allocations for the various elements of support. Paragraph 70 sets out how under the Connect for Communities programme, we expect to allocate the full £7.1 million grant. We're proposing a broad range of support to a variety of different households, including families with children of all ages, pensioners, unpaid carers, care leavers, disabled people, larger families and single person households, all who may struggle with energy bills, food and water bills. We're proposing to do this via 3 main routes of support. Proactive, through discretionary grants to schools, colleges and early years settings. Vouchers to targeted cohorts via adults and children's social care teams, and support for unpaid and young carers. Through application-based via partners, which is a mandatory element of the fund in the form of utility support and fuel poverty advice. Exceptional housing support via district and borough councils, and finally through grants to third-party organisations, including provision for community grants and food support initiatives, including community pantries and food banks. So we're asking for a key decision on the following recommended allocations. Paragraph 4, direct award totalling £3,271,165. Paragraph 5, proactive support via food or fuel vouchers for £989,679 in total. Paragraph 6, delegated authority for the Director of Children's Services in consultation with the lead member to award grants to third-party and community organisations up to the total value of £2,473,854. Paragraph 7, direct costs of the small programme team administering the programme. And paragraph 8, delegated approval for the delegated authority for the Director of Children's Services in consultation with the lead member to reallocate funds on a needs basis to enable us to respond to emerging local needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you to you and your team for such a comprehensive report. The funding that we've received this time is the same as that we received previously, and I think there's evidence that shows the great work that we've done with that funding previously, and I'm really pleased to see going forward what else we are going to be doing with this funding and continuing I dare I say the Hampshire way of delivering actually this much needed funding to our communities. Having spoken to or having received correspondence and spoken to some of our partners in this, they're really pleased with how we are going to be allocating the funding again this time. So that makes me really happy that they are working with us to make sure that we reach as many of our Hampshire residents that are in need of this as possible. Before I get on to the recommendations, and I'm really pleased you read out the recommendations, Katie, on this one, because there are very lengthy, those recommendations. Do I have any other colleagues that would like to comment or ask questions on this report? I can't see anybody. So brilliant. Well, thank you again for all your hard work, Katie, and all your team's hard work. And I'm very happy to approve the recommendations 4 to 8 of this report. And I look forward to hearing from those that will benefit from this about the positive work and the outcomes that it's achieved for our residents. So thank you very much.
Thank
you. Next item on the agenda is agenda item 2, and it's the Capita contract extension for children's services and schools software. And I believe this again is Sarah.
Thank you, Councillor Chad. Afternoon, everybody. My name's Sarah Snowden, Assistant Director for Children's Services. This report is asking for approval to spend on a contract extension up to 9 years of Capita. This is our key IT system, software and support. This follows exec member decision in March 2012 when an IT procurement was undertaken and a contract for up to 20 years was awarded to Capita Business Services Limited. That decision stated that a further exec lead member approval to spend decision should be sought should the contract exceed 11 years. That 11 years is up on the 29th of December 2024, hence we are here asking for an extension. Paragraph 10 details the average annual spend on the Capita contract. We can see that is approximately estimated at 0.42 million per annum. And then paragraph 12 explains that working on that estimate over the next 9 years, we estimate 3.73 million. Within the procurement and in the contract, an upper spend limit of 10 million is requested. However, this recommendation will be asking that we approve up to 4 million. And if we require extra spend for any other essential business needs within that contract, we will return to exec member for approval to spend above the 4 million. Paragraph 15 explains very briefly what the system does. So you can see it looks after the school admissions, inclusion services, early years, school transport, youth services, statutory reporting and other statutory functions within children's services. And it holds records on every child on roll at schools in Hampshire and also our outer county looked after children, which means that we can complete and meet our statutory reporting requirements for the DFE. Finally, out of interest, paragraph 26 explains that Capita One Limited recently announced their acquisition by Orchard Information Systems Limited, which is part of MRI Software. That actually completed in September 24, but Capita One have confirmed they will continue to trade under the same name, although staff will transfer. And we've included a link to the press release for interest there. We have spoken to Capita. They will continue to work with us and they will give us the extension. We have included that within the recommendations, Councillor Chad. Would you like me to read out the recommendations?
Fine, thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much again for this report. Councillor Baines, you have a question?
Thanks, Councillor Chad, and thanks to Sarah for the comprehensive report. It's really interesting. It's just more of a statement, really, just to express my concern about the upper spend limit of £10 million, which seems to be a very high number. And I'd also like to draw attention, if possible, to the fact that when the initial contract was signed back in 2013, 95% of schools use the SIMS system. This has reduced by a huge 70% since then to now only 25% of schools that are using the system. Due to obviously time constraints and an upcoming deadline for this extension in December, and also the lack of competitors in the market that can offer the complexity within the system elements that are required by local authorities, it seems as though we are sort of backed into a corner on this, and I hope it's something that we can learn from moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Sarah, do you want to respond to that?
I could respond regarding the school's usage, because we have checked with finance and procurement colleagues. It will be cost neutral should more schools drop out, for example. That's why within the paper they are estimated costs. We do an annual report through IT for the schools that are engaged in using the system, and we get invoiced accordingly. So if more schools decide to use other services for their MIS systems, that will not cost the local authority any money. So I can comment on that. I can also comment that there from what we can see in the market through some soft market testing, there are no other competitors that would be significantly less cost revenue-wise, and also could offer the complexity of this system.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stuart. You're on mute, Stuart, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Apologies. I just wanted to respond to Councillor Chad in relation to the spend. This is seeking approval for £4 million spend. Were there to be any greater spend, we would come back and seek further executive member approval, just to reassure Councillor Baines. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. You took the words right out of my mouth with that one, but thank you so much. So have we got any other questions or comments in regards to this agenda item? As I think we've been reassured in regards to Councillor Baines's questions. I can't see any other questions or comments from anyone else. So if I take us to the recommendations on the paper, and the recommendations are paragraphs 2 to 4. And I am happy to approve all 3 of those recommendations. Yes. Thank you, Sarah, for yours and your team's work.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is North Whiteley New Secondary School, and we do have a member that would wish to speak on this. So if I can invite Councillor Burton, first of all, to say a few words in regards to this, and then I'll ask the officers to present the report. Please.
Hello, good afternoon. Just checking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
And see me, hopefully. Sorry for that, but good. Thank you. Thank you, Ross. Good afternoon, officers and members, and thank you for allowing me to speak on this item. I've read the report very carefully, and I'd like to start by highlighting some disappointing errors within the report. So the report states that all Whiteley residents live within the district of Winchester. In fact, this is actually wrong. Half the Whiteley residents live in the borough of Fareham, and I know that because I represent them. So that obviously needs correcting. And it might seem slightly petty, but making reference and talking about Wellborn, the spelling is incorrect and it's inconsistent across the report. And just one other note, it refers to the current Cornerstone Primary School opening in 2013. In fact, that was actually 2021. So, you know, I'm concerned that there are errors in this report, and it just really does. I just lose a lack of confidence on a decision being made with the report that has errors. But yeah, notwithstanding that, I've obviously my division as I've said, represent Whiteley, which is the Fareham side of Whiteley. I don't represent residents of the Henry Court ward or division. But having said that, there has been a huge amount of emails and correspondence that I've received. And there's definitely a common tone to the emails and the concerned parents that are facing distressing times for their children, and obviously managing the anxiety and the uncertainty for the children around the relocation and suggestion of option 3. But without being negative, I think it's important to recognise the benefit for the hundreds of Whiteley families that have waited over a generation, spending years commuting for a long overdue school, and they are quite rightly so excited. But I've got a few concerns around that. Firstly being Whiteley, a new school needs its own identity, a new identity. Henry Court, it's not just the name of a school, it's got history to Fareham. And so this shouldn't be carried forward and imported into Whiteley. So I do ask that this be reviewed at the relevant time. And I'd like to make it clear that I do fully support the opening of the secondary school in Whiteley, but it shouldn't happen at the detriment of the Henry Court catchment of Fareham, and nor the potential growing population in Whiteley. And I just am concerned about the consideration that's been given to those two things. Henry Court serves the most deprived area in the borough of Fareham, and its closure will disproportionately affect those who are most disadvantaged. And the children most in need of a good school are those that are going to have the least opportunity to attend one. I appreciate we must embrace a statutory process and will lead on to further consultations, but this initial consultation has led to an awful lot more questions, and they're questions that parents really need the answers sooner rather than later. So I really think it's important that we try and iron out some of these concerns and questions before taking on any future consultations. It's important that we get it right, and parents are asking how effective the consultation was, questioning why, when given over 72% voted for an option, it seems to have been ignored and overlooked. Our children's education is extremely important, and it's important that they get the education they deserve. Without a doubt, the fall in birth rate in combination with the removal of the children from Whiteley area will lead to a fall in pupil numbers at Henry Court, and I recognise it's going to lead to a loss of funding and in turn uncertainty for the staff and the standards of the education, but that doesn't have to be the case. And I'm asking a couple of questions and ask if you can consider alternative options. So I'd like to know, as an area of deprivation, and there's a proven link to SEN needs, has keeping Henry Court open with a reduced number and using the premises to support the SEN needs, has this option been considered? So that's my first question. Obviously, transport costs are rapidly escalating and there's a growing need for SEN education, but the thought process and obviously considering Henry Court, keeping it open for the SEN provision, could also bring a savings in transport cost, and also keeping Henry Court to serve the Henry Court catchment and keeping travel times to a minimum for so many of the children. Busing children from Fareham to Whiteley is just reversing the problem we're trying to solve. And I'd like to know what numbers of children and over what period are the figures in this report based on busing children from Fareham into Whiteley? That's my next question. Another very important question I'd like an answer to: what are the figures of the children attending other schools such as Brookfield, Swanmore, and obviously there'll be some that are at private education who are actually Whiteley residents? And if they choose to move back to their catchment school in 2027, I think we need to consider that the new school at Whiteley might be at capacity quicker than anticipated. And if we're moving children, busing them in from Fareham into Whiteley, where is that going to leave those children if it's suddenly you've got an influx of children you weren't prepared for from other catchment from other schools back to their own catchment school? So I ask the decision today should be given the greatest weight to the response from those likely most affected by the proposal, and especially the parents of the children at the affected school. The preferred option, in my view, is not a balance of the consultation. People are seeking reassurance of the future. I would like to propose to commence a period of statutory consultation for the opening of the new school at Whiteley for 2027 with option 1 rather than option 3. And I don't want this for a long-term decision, but I'd just like for the questions and alternatives to be considered before proceeding with option 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. And thank you for picking up those errors. Can we make sure that they're corrected? And can I just ask if that happens again, could you just inform us prior to the meeting, because then we can make sure that they're corrected beforehand. Thank you. Stuart, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, although just to say there's quite technical questions there, Councillor Burton, that off the top of officers' heads, I'd be worried about them just responding to. I'd like them to go away and come back to you and put them in writing. I think that's the only way we can give you proper, considered responses. And I've just paused there, if you're okay, Councillor Chair, just ask Mark or Rich whether they think they can answer any of those questions in full now or not, and because they're the experts. Rich?
No, I think that the best answer is to take them on and answer them fully for Councillor Burton in case we start to give out the wrong number and the wrong detail.
Okay, thank you for that. Can I ask then, so we have got Mark Saunders, Senior Strategic Development Officer, and Jean Thorpe. I think we've got Jean on the call as well, and we've got Richard Vaughan as well. Is it possible for you to present the report, please?
Of course, thank you. As you say, I'm the Senior Strategic Development Officer in Children's Services, and I'm presenting this report that's been developed alongside my colleague, Jean Thorpe, who's the County Education Manager, Secondary and Post-16. Natalie Smith, who's on the call, will pick up any questions that relate to specifically to education provision. This is a detailed and comprehensive report that provides the executive member the information needed to make a challenging decision on the next step with regard the future education offer for children in Fareham and Whiteley. The report follows on from a decision taken in March to informally consult with the community on 3 options. Consultees were provided with an extensive information pack and also had the opportunity to meet with officers at 2 public drop-in events. This report updates the executive member on the outcome of the consultation and seeks approval on the County Council's preferred option, which is to relocate the Henry Court to the new secondary school at North Whiteley in September 27. I'd like to draw your attention to those updates, most notably paragraphs 18 to 20, which provides details on the consultation that took place between the 28th of March and the 31st of May and included a public drop-in event at Henry Court and Cornerstones Primary School. The extensive consultation understandably prompted a response from the community. Every response was carefully read and considered, then categorised into common themes, which are shown in Appendix 2, along with the County Council's response. Paragraph 22 confirms that Fareham Academy and Cams Hill Secondary School have agreed in principle to expanding their catchment areas if the relocation of Henry Court is adopted and a new secondary school establishes a new catchment. This is shown in Figure 2. The schools wish to define a clear link with primary schools rather than create a shared catchment. Paragraph 23 in Table 1 provides an update to the forecasts to show the number of children living in catchment of each secondary school as of September 27. And paragraph 26 and 27 highlights the significant school transport savings in the long term if the County Council option is adopted, and means a reduction in the travel time for children living in Whiteley and considers the cost of transportation in the transition period. Children, including children who are on roll at Henry Court in September 2027 to the new school. Paragraph 37 draws attention to the financial challenge for Henry Court if the school stayed open after 2027 and inevitably became smaller. Paragraphs 39 to 43 are the key education considerations in the County Council's approach and highlights improvements in standards at Henry Court, the education impact a significant drop in numbers would have on the curriculum offer if an additional school were opened and Henry Court retained in its current site, as well as the support the County Council would provide during a transition period. Paragraph 47 to 49 confirms the statutory processes are being followed, that any catchment changes required would be subject to separate consultation, and that if the recommendation were approved, a statutory public consultation period would begin on the 8th of November. The County Council would welcome responses following further consideration of the detail in this report and during the drop-in events. Officers have reported to me that some members of the community may well be of a different mind now, given the information that's been shared with them. In conclusion, paragraph 53 to 60 sets out succinctly why the County Council believes that pursuing the option to relocate Henry Court to the new secondary school at Whiteley is the best way forward to ensuring stability in education provision for all children across Fareham and Whiteley in the longer term. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I don't know if you have anything, Councillor Forster, you'd like to.
Yeah, I would, Councillor Chad, thank you. We visited the school to get a good feel for the site and the travel from the Henry Court school area, which was most useful, and I'm grateful to officers for having joined us on that. It gave us a good opportunity as well to actually review the responses from the consultation. And I think I would highlight that we're not making any final decision now. We're going to a preferred option that's been put forward based on the feedback that has been received and some of the changes to the original consultation based on feedback that's been received following that. Laying on the public events to actually then provide a lot more information will help inform residents and students, and I think that will be really sanguine in terms of taking this forward. So from a personal viewpoint, I do think that what's been proposed, although initially contrary to the initial consultation, non-statutory consultation, I think based on the latter feedback that we've had, it's very much in line with that, although I recognise the comments that have been made about supporting the extra schools, and that's why I stress no, the original school, and that's why I stress no decision has been made on that. The whole point is to do a statutory consultation, and that's where this process should work really well. So I think what's proposed is a good way to proceed, and it'll be important to then provide that information and get the informed feedback as a final phase.
Thank you, Councillor Forster. Councillor Baines?
Thanks, Councillor Chad, and thanks to the officers for the report. I was really pleased to see that there were over 1,100 consultation responses and over 500 comments on this item. I am, however, concerned that 72% of respondents opted for option 1, not option 3, which is the one that's being proposed, and that the views of the overwhelming majority in the community aren't being taken into full consideration. With only 22% of respondents choosing the proposed option, I am concerned that the feedback of local residents, families and stakeholders isn't properly being taken into account. I appreciate the points that Mark and Councillor Forster have just mentioned, and that some respondents may have changed their minds. However, we don't actually have that data in front of us in this report, only the numbers that are within the in the agenda pack. This recommendation does also raise real concerns around the effectiveness of public consultations, in particular this one, when the recommendation isn't in line with the overwhelming community response. I would welcome further examination on this item before any decision is made. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Do I have any other questions or comments from members? Okay, thank you. So if I could just take a moment and take us to the recommendations, and I've got a little bit to say as well. And having heard it, we've received a lot of feedback, as Councillor Forster said. We went and we visited the site, we did the journey between the two locations as well. And so whilst my decision is to approve that period of formal consultation on the County Council's preferred option to relocate Henry Court Community School to North Whiteley, I do absolutely acknowledge that this decision does not reflect all the feedback that we've received from the community during the initial phase of the consultation. Analysis was undertaken, and it's contained in this report of the probable impact on both standards and long-term viability of building an entirely new school whilst seeking all the existing schools in its substantive. And I am at this time fully satisfied that to build a new school in North Whiteley whilst maintaining all the existing schools in the area would lead to educational and financial decline of the existing schools and a resulting reduction in both the choice and education standards for the families of Whiteley and Fareham. The County Council's preferred option seeks to ensure that this isn't the case, and I would like to personally reassure all of those 1,100 respondents and those individuals, at those 500 comments, over 500 comments that we received and who responded to the initial consultation, that their views are valued and were subject to much consideration and a prolonged discussion, making this a very challenging decision to reach today. And I would also like to reassure all those that are potentially impacted by the final outcome of the process that this decision today enables a formal period of consultation to commence on the preferred option, and that the final decision on the way forward will be made at a future decision day. And I think that's the opportunity for the community again to come forward with their concerns. I finally would encourage all stakeholders, as I've just said, to consider responding in this period of consultation and to carefully read the report in order to take into account the additional detail contained within it, so that they fully understand why the County Council at this time still considers the relocation of Henry Court Community College the most sensible, long-term and viable way forward. And I cannot reiterate enough how important it is that this isn't the final decision. It's about going out to consultation again, and for members, the community, to please respond to that consultation so that we can get that feedback and that decision can be made at a later date. So just to sum up, I will support the recommendation for the approval to be given to the publication of the public notice to relocate Henry Court Community College to the new North Whiteley secondary school site from September 2027. And I genuinely do, along with Councillor Forster, look forward to reading each of those responses as we have with the previous consultation as well, and taking those all into account. So thank you everybody for that, and thank you Mark for your report and for supporting Councillor Forster and I with our visit to the location so we could really get a feel of where it was. So thank you very much. I will now move on to the next agenda item, and that is the it's a non-key decision, and it's agenda item 4, and it's childcare sufficiency assessment. And sorry, apologies, that's presented by Lisa.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, councillors and colleagues. My name is Peter Cooper and I'm the Childcare Development Service Manager for Hampshire County Council. And the report in front of you on pages 145 to 166 is about the 2023/24 Childcare Sufficiency Assessment. The purpose of the report is to update you on how we as a local authority fulfil our statutory duties to secure sufficient childcare to meet parental needs in accordance with the Early Education and Childcare Statutory Guidance for Local Authorities published in April 2024. Recommendations are that the Executive Lead Member for Children's Services notes the content of the Childcare Sufficiency Assessment, which is in Appendix A. And just to highlight that this is being published in a new way to make it more accessible for parents and providers in the future. So from paragraph 3 onwards, the exec summary, our CSA assessment of the market as of April 2024 showed that the known status of the childcare places available to the market, and it was the period where the new expanded childcare places started to come on stream. It also gives an action plan for us going forward for 2025. So Hampshire continues to have a vibrant childcare market, 95% of our providers receiving good or outstanding Ofsted outcomes. We do, however, have some challenges ahead with workforce shortages and with the rollout of the new entitlements going forward. So whilst we've got a vibrant market, our challenges come to a point at September 2025. So key market challenges are the supply of places, especially for 9-month-old through to 2-year-olds, recruitment and retention, which is a national issue, and also ensuring that along with the new entitlements, our disadvantaged groups or vulnerable children and those with special educational needs and disabilities are not negatively impacted. Sections 6 to 9 give you the contextual information about our legislative duties and also about the changes as of the spring budget of 2023 with the new entitlements. It also introduces the wraparound care programme that came in as a result of that spring budget. As far as our places and providers goes, we are showing a 2% reduction as of 2024 in our providers and a 1% in our capacity of places at that time. But our broad mix of providers still numbers over 1,255 different providers. The workforce of 8,300 practitioners is a 3% increase. We have seen a reduction in the higher levels of qualifications, but and an increase in the lower levels of qualifications. One of our challenges is that the census as of spring 24 showed that we had a deficit of 600 unfilled vacancies. Paragraphs 17 to 20 talk about childcare take-up and show a slight reduction in 3- and 4-year-olds taking up their entitlements. Section 21 highlights our support for vulnerable children, and as of spring we had 83% of our eligible children attending against a national average of 75%. However, since the expanded entitlements have come in, we've seen that drop down to about 77%. So that is a key area for our work in the future. Children with SEND continue to increase. About 13% of children attending early years provision in Hampshire have special education needs or disabilities. As far as wraparound care goes, our benchmark was we started off this funding period with 54% of our primary schools having full access to wraparound care as defined by the Department for Education, which is 8 till 6 wrapping around the school day. We have moved that on to 67% after a first funding round, and that will go higher after a second round, which has recently been completed. Section 28 is the financial section, which lays out the funding rates that we offer, but also highlights a capital grant which was made available of £2.8 million, which was split between the early years and the wraparound. So 2.2 million for early years and £600,000 for wraparound. So to conclude from paragraph 40 onwards, Hampshire continues to have a high quality and responsive childcare market. We are forecasting that we will require 2,320 places as of September 25. We're seeing an increase in the wraparound take-up. We are seeing an increase in children with special education needs and disabilities presenting in early year settings. Retention and recruitment of the workforce is our key challenge. And the sector continues to report a very difficult financial operating environment at this time. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for your really comprehensive report and your comprehensive analysis just now as well. I have no questions on this item. I think there's been continuous dialogue, and we went over it quite thoroughly in the briefing. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on this? I think one thing I would actually just like to highlight is actually the benefit of making it far more easier for parents to read and understand, because I think early years and wraparound care for a parent is a bit of a minefield to do in regards to what your entitlement is and things like that. So I really appreciate making that far more easier for parents, and also for settings as well. It makes it much easier for them to be able to respond in that regard. So thank you for that as well. So if I just go straight to the recommendations, I will read this one out because it's only the one. And the recommendation is that it's recommended that the Executive Lead Member for Children's Services note the content of the Children's Sufficiency Assessment provided in Appendix A. More than happy to approve that recommendation. Thank you so much, Peter, for your time. I'm now going to hand over to Stuart Ashley, the Director of Children's Services, for the next item.
Thank you, Councillor Chair. So item 5 is a short report seeking, as we are required to do by legislation, to go out to consult on some changes to the school transport policy. However, since your briefing, there's been further discussions, and I know, Councillor Chadd, you have a view in regard to this paper, so I shall stop there and hand back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. So I would like to actually withdraw this paper today, and that as the Executive Lead Member for Children's Services, I would like to defer the approval to proceed with the public consultation on the proposed changes to the school transport policy, whilst an options analysis is undertaken by officers in consultation with myself and Councillor Forster to address in particular the spare seat capacity. And also that as the Executive Lead Member, I request that this assessment this assesses the viability of spare seat capacity being a source of income for the council against the need to cease because it incurs too great a cost. As part of this analysis, myself as the Executive Lead Member asks the officers to specifically address the following areas: sustainability, income generation, public desire and interest, and legal safe routes, and adult employment. So that is my proposal on this item, that it is delayed and deferred for until we have that piece of work done. I've got Councillor Cradbaines has a question or a comment.
Thanks, Councillor Chad. I'd just like to say that I would support your decision to withdraw this item at this time, as it's not something I personally would support happening due to the concerns you've mentioned around the cessation of the spare seat capacity scheme. I'd just like to mention in places across the county, and one example, Ansell's Farm in Fleet, this is a vital service where a lot of children value and utilise this scheme. I think we need to understand and know exactly how much the administration of the spare seat capacity scheme really costs, and whether this proposal would be in the best interest of local children who utilise this scheme. I think it would not. It would have a negative impact on many families. And just to finalise, I would support you deferring this to a future date. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Councillor Forster, you have a comment?
Yes, specifically on something that Councillor Baines just said. I fully support this. Councillor Chad and myself have spoken about it, and we've spoken with officers as well about the opportunity this presents. But specifically on Ansell's Farm, Councillor Collett, who's the ward division member there, has had a detailed response which confirmed that some of the high-level costs that demonstrate that the council is effectively subsidising all those spare places to a very high degree, which isn't equitable for parents across the whole of Hampshire. So it was something that was put in as a short-term requirement because of some communications or miscommunications, I should say, that were read by some parents. It's very clear the policy as it stands at the moment is correct, and Councillor Collett does have that information for Ansell's Farm. So no changes proposed on that other than what he's already been written to, and hopefully will relay to his residents. I know that our officers will be writing to residents with an update on that imminently. But in terms of the current proposal, as in the D-Day papers and what Councillor Chad is supporting, provision of that extra information will inform us and enable us to make the right decision for the county and its parents and children going forward. So I fully support that and would thank you for that.
Thank you. So I think we've got a piece of work to do on this one, and I look forward to the outcome of that and being part of that piece of work as well. So thank you for that. That does bring me, I think, to my last item on the agenda for today, which is the permission to consult on the proposed changes for the post-16 transport policy. And I think we've got John is going to present this report.
Thank you, Councillor Chad. Yes, the purpose of the report is to seek permission to proceed with the public consultation on the school transport post-16 policy for the academic year 2025 to 2026. Post-16 transport is discretionary, and it is therefore at the behest, at the discretion of each local authority to decide whether and how they will provide post-16 transport. But what we are required to do, where there is a statutory requirement to publish a post-16 policy each academic year by the 31st of May of the previous academic year. The policy that we are proposing is very similar to in previous years. There are just two proposed updates to this policy this year. The first, which is covered in paragraphs 11 to 13, is to add a paragraph to the policy to provide clarity on the evidence that is required from parents where they are applying for discretionary post-16 transport on the basis that they are not able to provide transport to their children themselves. And that's described in, I'll say, paragraphs 11 to 13. The second proposal, which is described in paragraphs 14 to 16, is to make some minor changes to the wording and formatting of the policy to make it clearer and easier to understand. So examples include using bullet points where information is currently in a long list, substituting the use of HCC, local authority and LA with the county council throughout, and consistent formatting, cross-referencing and grammatical changes that again will make it easier to understand for parents. And the recommendation in the report is that you approve going forward with a public consultation on the updated policy.
Thank you, John. Do I have any questions or comments in regard to this item from anyone in the call? No. Thank you, John, for a comprehensive report, and thank you again for actually making it more of an easy read for parents going forward. I think that's going to be really appreciative and makes it far more inclusive, and is definitely the right way to go. So if I and also thank you for reading out the recommendation, so that saves me the job. So if I take you to paragraph 2 of the paper, which is the recommendation, I'm happy to approve to proceed with the public consultation on this one. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Councillor Chad, and good afternoon, everyone. I've already been speaking, but I'm going to be speaking a little bit more on the upcoming 3 points. I would like to go straight into my decision day, which starts with deputations. I'm not aware that any has been received. Adam, if you could please confirm if that is the case.
That's the case.
Good, thank you. All right, with no deputations, I also have no key decisions to make today. So we'll go straight into the non-key decisions, and that's item 7 on the agenda, which is the important area of additional specialist provision in terms of resourced provisions. I think Emma is taking us through this, I believe.
It's me, Councillor Forster, Natalie Smith.
Thank you, Natalie.
Director.
Well volunteered. If you'd like to take us through the report, please.
Thank you. So, Natalie Smith, Assistant Director for Education and Inclusion. And I will take you through this report, which essentially is a request for a number of additional specialist places in resourced provisions. So we are looking for approval to consult given to the expansion of the resource provision at Bedenham Primary School in Gosport that caters for pupils with social, emotional and mental health that I will now call SEMH needs. And we wish to increase that from 6 places to 12, from needs 6 additional places to increase from 12 to 18 from September 2025. The expansion of the resource provision at Holbrook Primary School that caters for pupils with autistic spectrum condition that I will call ASC from now on, to combine with the other existing resource provision, which currently is for pupils with social, language and communication needs, to become 1 resource provision, all ASC designated with 36 places from September 2025, to answer the question about why we are willing to lose the places for speech, language and communication, or social language and communication. It is because we are now able to meet the needs of children and young people with those needs within school at the level of SEN support. So those places are not widely taken up. So it is much better use of these places to redesignate them to the area of ASC where we have lots of children that are in need of places. We'd also like to expand the resource provision of Sherbull Primary School, which caters for pupils with SEMH needs from 7 to 11. And we would also like to work with the Inspire Learning Partnership Academy Trust on the establishment of a new resourced provision for pupils with SEMH needs at Blackfield Primary School for 12 pupils, again from September 2025. Looking at paragraphs 15 onwards, it's explained how we propose to make those additions. So we are proposing with Bedenham to refurbish a surplus classroom. The exact costs of that will be
decided and brought back if the decision passes today. In terms of the Holbrook Primary School resource provision, once again, there is a surplus meeting room which we hope to refurbish. With Cherbourg Primary School, there are no anticipated changes, so that will require no additional capital costs. And with Blackfield Primary School, the school has surplus classroom spaces that will require only minor adaptations. So we hope that the recommendation to consult for these places is agreed.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Does anyone have any questions or comments they wish to raise on that? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Natalie. That was a comprehensive report. It's always good when there aren't any questions because it means the report was comprehensive and addressed them up front, which I think is really good. I'm delighted to see this. It builds on previous decisions to increase resource provision. It's such an important area to ensure those specialist places are provided. And I'm really pleased that we've been responsive to the lack of take up on the SLCN places and shifting that capacity to ASC autistic spectrum condition is a really good news. I think it just demonstrates or evidences the responsiveness and the way that we are very much looking at what the needs are and making sure that we deliver those most effectively, most speedily, and most cost effectively as well. Really encouraging what you said. So on that basis, I am happy to approve the recommendations as detailed in paragraphs 3, 4, and 5 that you outlined, and that one is fully approved. Thank you, Natalie. The next item is item 8, something that I'm sure will make a lot of people very happy. We're maintaining our policy of looking ahead and giving some good vision on school term and holiday dates. I think, Nick, are you taking us through this, the proposal on school term and holiday dates for 2028 and 29?
Thank you, Councillor Forster. Yes, it's me. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the annual paper that seeks to determine the school year for Hampshire's community and voluntary controlled schools, as Councillor Forster said, in 28-29. The calendar, which you will find in Appendix 2, has been taken to the Schools Union Group and has been consulted on with Hampshire Schools via the Schools Communications portal. Just some brief key things to note. The main aim in determining and setting the calendar is the best balance of terms, as that we can possibly find. In this particular year, the early Easter and the Christmas on a Monday have made things slightly tricky. So it does mean there are some half-week starts and finishes. But in line with teacher and staff wishes, we have managed to propose 2 full weeks at Christmas and Easter. The Maundy Thursday finish at the end of the spring term and the early May bank holiday does mean it is necessary, though, to have 2 days, the 23rd and 24th of July, as a half week prior to the summer holidays commencing. However, the proposed calendar is still considered to provide the best balance of terms, even with the trickiness of the calendar. You will see there was limited responses to the consultation that we ran with schools, and they actually differed and opposed one another, and ultimately our proposal around the ending of the autumn term split that in the middle and proposes a half-week finish to ensure that the autumn term is not too long, but also the Christmas holidays aren't compromised. And you will see the School Union Group broadly agreed that it did represent the best balance of dates overall. So as a result of that, we do consider that the proposed calendar that went out to consultation is still considered to provide the best balance overall. And the recommendation in paragraph 2 of the report is that the Executive Member for Education approves the school year for 28-29 as set out in Appendix 2 of the report.
Nick, thank you very much. That was really detailed. Do I have any questions on the school term report or my impending decision? Councillor Baines.
Thanks, Councillor Foster, and thanks, Nick, for the report. I think it's a really positive thing that we're able to give advance notice of school dates, term times and holidays to staff, so they're able to readily plan for future events. So it's just a thank you to you and your team for being able to give that level of reassurance to staff members across Hampshire who do such a good job in their daily lives as well, for the benefit of all Hampshire residents and children. Thank you.
Councillor Baines, thank you for those very positive words, and I think that recognises the excellent work done by all our officers. Councillor Chad, you'd like to add something?
Thank you. Again, thank you, Nick, for this report, and thank you, Stephen, let me speak. I just wonder, can we really encourage our schools to actually get this information out to parents as soon as possible? Because I think that actually this has a positive effect potentially on our attendance issues. If parents themselves can plan a lot further ahead, we could see the benefits in our attendance records in our schools as well. So if we can make sure that gets out and that they share it as soon as possible, would be great.
Thank you. That's a very good point, Councillor Chad, and we'll make sure our comms teams also get that information on the new dates out. I know that we use social media of various descriptions quite well, but you're quite right, the schools need to do so direct to their parents to ensure we get good coverage. So we'll make a note to do that, please, Nick, if you can relay that. On that basis, I am happy to take the recommendation as detailed in paragraph 2 and read through by Nick as read, and to fully approve that recommendation. Thank you. That leads us on to the last decision for today, which relates to 1 Horton Heath and delivery of a new primary school provision. And that one, I believe, Richard, you're taking us through.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Yes, Richard Vaughan, Strategic Manager, Capital Planning Development. Just to note, Councillor Foster, this report is to note. It doesn't require a decision from you. It's simply to note. And to sum this report up, it's basically to explain to members that we are deviating from standard policy in regards to Section 106 arrangements and delivery of new schools in relation to 1 Horton Heath. 1 Horton Heath is a major housing scheme being delivered by Eastleigh Borough Council, both as local planning authority and developer. They have taken the decision, which they are entitled to do, to fund and to deliver the school directly. We are working with them on this process, and in order to support them through this process, have set up an education steering group that will ensure the school is delivered on time and to the standards we expect. It's an unusual step for another local authority to take, and one with no experience in building schools, hence the need for the education steering group. Just to reassure you, Councillor Forster and Councillor Chad, within the Section 106 arrangements that are being put in place, there are what we call step-in clauses that will enable the county councils to step in should it need to. So should it need to step in to ensure the school is delivered, or Eastleigh feel unable to deliver the school at any time, we are able to step in on a full cost recovery basis to deliver the school in a timely manner. The other point I would just make is that in exception, this is not an issue for us in terms of treasury management. We would have greater concern if this happened on a more regular basis, as obviously it would affect the county council's cash flow and the way we manage our money. But in isolation, not an issue. So just to conclude, it's for you to note this report and this position. If the position changes, we will update you.
Thank you, Richard. That's appreciated. I'm conscious that Councillor Louise Parker-Jones had a question which she was having some technology problems and wasn't able to ask. So you've addressed one of those in terms of our step-in rights, so to speak. But the other one, maybe Councillor Chad, if you could just read out the second one, which I think was pretty much covered in the report, but if you can read it out, and then Richard, if you could maybe answer it, please.
Absolutely. So Councillor Parker-Jones' second question was, is Hampshire happy with the level of input it has to ensure the building is not only fit for purpose as an educational establishment, but that it will always It will also be carbon neutral, and that it's designed in a way to make it accessible to all, including our neurodivergent young people.
Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor. Absolutely, we are at this point, and that is the purpose of the Education Steering Group, to ensure the building is delivered in line with our expectations, the DfE's expectations and planning expectation.
Thank you very much, Richard. That's a level of comfort. It is a change from the norm, and I think our architect team, our design team do an amazing job, and so do our contractors. So it will be interesting to see how Eastleigh perform on this, and we'll keep a very close eye on it. But I appreciate your comments and the support from officers. So that information is noted on the basis it's not a decision. Thank you. I think that brings today to a close. I'd like to thank everyone who was involved. Thank Councillor Chad for the first and more demanding section. We've had quite a lot of decisions today, and we've overrun slightly from the target time. So thank you everyone for your help, for your questions, and look forward to seeing you again shortly. Thank you. If we can stop the recording then, please, Adam. And